Okay, chapter 2, we're going to look at jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is probably the most complicated thing to look at, so we're going to try to get a firm grasp of this for the exam. Okay, jurisdiction, okay, is comprised of two different elements, okay? Personal jurisdiction and subject matter jurisdiction. Personal jurisdiction has to do with whether or not a court has jurisdiction over a defendant, okay? Whether they have the authority to, to essentially deal with a certain defendant. So we're looking at geography here, okay? We're looking at geography. So courts are going to have jurisdiction over two different things. First, residents of the state of the defendant, okay? Secondly, even if the defendant doesn't live in that state, they're going to have jurisdiction if the defendant has what's called minimum contacts. And minimum contacts just means that the defendant has either committed a tort in the state, it means that they have entered into a contract in the state, or that they have done substantial business in the state. Okay, so one of those two things. We're either looking for to be a resident of the state or to have some kind of minimum contacts with the state. So after we establish personal jurisdiction, we move over to what's called subject matter jurisdiction. And in subject matter jurisdiction, we're doing just that. We're looking at the subject matter, what's going on, within the case, to determine what court we should go to. So the first thing we're going to do is check for what's called exclusive jurisdiction. Now, exclusive jurisdiction means that either the federal government, either the federal court system, or the state court system has exclusive control over a certain kind of case. So we look at federal, okay? We see things like bankruptcy, copyrights, patent infringement, federal tax issues. These are all things that the federal court system has exclusive jurisdiction over, okay? So only the federal court system can deal with these things. Now we look at things that the state has. Things like probate, when somebody dies, divorce, domestic relations. These are things that the state has exclusive jurisdiction over, okay? These are matters that would only be heard in state court. So everything else that is not one of these things up here would be what's called concurrent jurisdiction, which means it could be heard in state court or federal court. So, if it has concurrent jurisdiction, so if we're dealing with something that has, that can be heard in either federal or state court, we're going to look to see if we can move it to federal court. So the first thing we're going to look at is if it has federal question. Now, federal question means that whatever is being sued over has to do, or at least arises from, the Constitution or from some federal law. If the answer is yes, then we can move it up to federal court. The other option is something called diversity. Now, in diversity, we want to make sure that the amount in controversy, basically what's being sued over, is more than $75,000. And we want to make sure that parties are from different states. So it's important to remember, for diversity, you need both of these things. You need the amount in controversy over 75, and you need both parties from different states. So, when you look at a jurisdiction question, here's how you want to analyze it, okay? You want to look to see if there's personal jurisdiction, okay? The home of the defendant, or minimum contacts within the state. That'll tell you what state you're dealing with. Now, you then go to see if there's exclusive jurisdiction. Look at the issue. If it's something like bankruptcy, then you know it's federal court. If it's something like divorce, you know it's state court. If the answer is yes, you're done. But if the answer is no, and it's a concurrent jurisdiction issue, then we look at subject matter jurisdiction. So we look to see if there's a federal question, and if not, then we look to go to diversity. So we're going to do 3 examples, all right, just to give you a little bit of background on this. Example 1, Alan from Alabama and Flo from Florida get into a car accident while they are both in Texas on vacation. Alan sues Flo for $65,000 to cover the damage to his car and his medical bills. In what court can he file suit? Okay, so first thing we're going to do is look at personal jurisdiction, okay? So the defendant, in this case Flo, she lives in Florida, right? So we know for sure that she can be sued in Florida. Now also, she has minimum contacts in Texas. Why? Because they got into a car accident in Texas. That's the tort, okay? You commit a tort in a state. So now we know that Alan could sue her in Texas and Florida. Okay, now let's check for exclusivity. Car accidents, okay? Are car accidents exclusively federal? No. Are they exclusively state? No. So Now we know they're concurrent. So now let's look for subject matter jurisdiction. Is this a federal question? No, right? This doesn't rise under the Constitution or anything like that. Now, let's look at diversity. Can we sue in federal court? Well, are both parties from different states? Yes. Flo is from Florida, Alan's from Alabama, right? But we're missing the second part. The second part says that we need the amount to be greater than $75,000. So because it's not greater than $75,000, we don't have diversity, even though they're both from different states. So that being said, we cannot bring this suit to federal court. So she can only be sued in Florida state court and Texas state court. We cannot sue in federal court. Okay, example number 2. Ian and Leslie obtained a divorce in Kentucky with an order to pay alimony. After the divorce, Ian moved to Illinois and Leslie moved to Louisiana. Ian has refused to pay alimony for several years, so Leslie sues him for $80,000. In what court can she sue him? Well, first let's do our personal jurisdiction analysis, okay? The defendant lives in Illinois, right? Ian lives in Illinois. So we already know, for one, that he can be sued in Illinois, okay? Now, he has minimum contacts in Kentucky too. Why? Because the contract, right, essentially the agreement, the legal agreement took place in Kentucky before the divorce. So she can sue him in both Kentucky and Illinois. Now, step 2, let's look for exclusivity, okay? Well, we know this is a divorce case, right? So the state courts do have exclusive jurisdiction in this issue, okay? So that's it, we're done, okay? We can't go to federal court. Kentucky state court, Illinois state court, that's it, okay? Do we check for subject matter jurisdiction? Nope, doesn't matter, because we stopped right here. Once we got exclusivity, we're done. We don't even have to go down here. So Ian can be sued in Illinois state court, and he can be sued in Kentucky state court. Now, just keep in mind, for your reference, the fact that Leslie lives in Louisiana is irrelevant. It's just not relevant. So we're only looking at where the defendant lives, okay? Last one. Tom from Tennessee and Valerie from Virginia are business partners. They opened up coffee shops in Utah and Arizona. They agree to split their profits 50-50, but Valerie refuses to give Tom his share of the profits. Tom wants to sue Valerie for a breach of contract. His lawsuit alleges that she owes him $100,000. Where can he sue Valerie? Where can he sue his business partner? Well, let's see. First, let's do our personal jurisdiction check. The defendant lives in Virginia, okay, Valerie lives in Virginia, and so she can be sued there for sure. She also has minimum contacts in Utah and Arizona. Why? Because she did business there, and she presumably signed contracts there. So that's 3 states, okay? She can be sued in Utah, Arizona, or Virginia. Now, let's look for exclusivity. The contract disputes, they don't fall under exclusive jurisdiction. It's not that federal courts have exclusive right under contracts, and states don't have exclusive right under contracts. So we're not sure yet. It can go either way. Now let's look for subject matter jurisdiction. Do we have a federal question? No. Right? Federal question, this doesn't arise under the Constitution or federal law. It's just a contract breach. Now, do we have diversity? Yes, we do. Why? Because Tom and Valerie are from 2 different states, right? Tom's from Tennessee and Valerie's from Virginia. So we got part 1 of diversity. Now, part 2 says, let's look at the amount in question. Is the amount in question greater than $75,000? And the answer is yes, okay? Remember, this is for $100,000. We're suing for $100,000. So we have diversity. So now we can kick it up to federal court. So the answer is she can be sued in state and federal court in Virginia, Utah, or Arizona, all right? Personal jurisdiction tells us a state. Subject matter jurisdiction lets us kick it up to federal if we want, all right? That's all. Thanks.